There were a whole bunch of eagles lived in this village, and eagles are high flyers, and, fly fast, and so these eagles are pretty competitive with each other. And so one time they thought there were three of them anyway, and each one was trying to fly higher and faster and do more somersaults and everything in the air that they do. And so they thought, well, why don't we have a contest and see who could fly the highest? And so they said okay, and each one was sure that they could fly higher than the other. And so one day it was nice and clear, and so the first eagle took off, and he went up, way up, up, and they kept flying, and he looked down, and he'd see the people down there, all the other eagles. And so finally he got up to a point where he thought, well, I've never been this high before, this is high enough. So then he soared down and just came down, and then all the people were clapping, or all the other eagles were glad to see him because he had gone that high. And so the next eagle, he said, oh, I can do better than that, he says. And so he too, he went up, and this time he went higher than the first eagle. And he was up there flying, soaring around, and finally he thought, well, this is higher than that one. So he decided that he had enough. So down he came, and all the other eagles were glad to see him as he came down. He was flying down. And then the third eagle thought, gee, they flew higher than any of us have before. What are we going to do? What am I going to do? He said. So he went up, and he thought, well, I have to fly higher than they. Then he went up, and pretty soon he looked down, and the eagles you could still see them down there. And he thought, well, I must go higher, a little bit higher. And so he went up a little bit higher, and then he looked down again, and he could hardly see the eagles that time. And he thought, well, this is higher than the other one. So just as he was making a big circle like that to come back down, an updraft caught him and took him up in the air. And he went up, and he couldn't control his flight. He was just kind of tumbling over, and his air was pulling him way up, and getting near to the sun, and it was getting hotter and hotter, and pretty soon he blacked out. And he came to, he felt himself, he was falling, he was tumbling over and over, and he looked down, and he could see the other eagles down there. They were all looking up, and they were hollering, and pretty soon he pulled out of it just and regained his flight enough to he pulled down to the earth like that, and he landed. And the other eagles were looking at him, and they were all laughing at him. And he was wondering, why are they laughing? Why aren't they cheering? He says, I went higher than the other one. And so finally he went over to where the water was, get a drink of water. And as he did, he looked down in the water, and he saw himself. And what happened? He looked at himself. All his beautiful white feathers on his head were gone, and he just had a naked head. And the people were laughing, and he turned around, and they banished him from the village because he was no longer an eagle. He turned into what they call the buzzard. The buzzard, the bareheaded, the sun scorched all his feathers off. So that's how come we have buzzards today, because at one time when the eagle tried to fly too high and just made a misjudgment. And so when you do something, make sure that it's right, or you might end up like that buzzard did.